Houston, we see you on a stereo.
Conspiracy, lies, truth, helping you understand the lies of the world and see the truth of the Bible. Welcome to Celebrate Truth with your hosts, Robbie Davidson and Pastor Nate.
Hey, it's Celebrate Truth Radio. I'm your host, Robbie Davidson. Join with me, my co-host, Pastor Nate Wolfe. Every Saturday on Revolution Radio, we expose the world's lies and celebrate the truth. How's it going, Pastor Nate?
Hey, it's going great, Robbie. How about yourself?
It's been amazing. It's been such a busy week, getting everything ready for the conference, also getting things prepared for Take on the World in Ohio. Yeah. It's going to be amazing. You've been pretty busy. I see that you went and did some studio work, got a new headshot for your profile.
Oh, yeah. I got some new headshots. Went over to Michael Solomon's studio, and Chris Bailey and Liz met up with us over there, and we did a little impromptu Flat Out Insights episode from the basement studio, so that was pretty cool.
Oh, very cool. So you got everything all ready now. I see the new headshot there on Facebook. It went up shortly afterwards. So, and how's the book coming along? I understand that you're close to finishing the first draft of your book.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm done with the writing. The only thing I'm going to insert is the endorsements, which I'll have by this next week, and then a few, basically instead of chapters, I have parts in the book. I have 7 different parts with a few sections in each part. So there's a couple little things I need to insert, and then we'll just continue doing some editing, and then I've got to convert that over to PDF and upload it and look at the publishing and the printing. So I think I'm on target. And Michael Solomon is doing my cover, and we talked about it while I was over there in Cleveland. We got an awesome idea for the cover. I think it's going to be pretty cool. It's going to be
maybe a boot just being booted right out of church, going out the front door.
It's going to be kind of edgy. Yeah, I think the boot would definitely suffice, but it's going to be kind of edgy. It's going to have a little bit of a mystery feel to the cover, a little suspense. So it's going to be kind of cool.
I think it's great because, it's not great, but the fact is that you're the first pastor to come forward being fired from his church, for this topic, and kind of putting your name out there. And I think that story is going to resonate not just with people that are involved in ministry, but, other pastors as well that, have gone through this over the years. Pastors have reached out to me and they wanted to remain anonymous, but it's unfortunate that this abuse is taking place in churches, right? And, in your case, you hadn't even preached on it or even talked about it. The mere, idea of even dare attending a conference where it might be talked about, that can get a person fired. I mean, me and my family, we've been kicked out of 2 churches. And when we were, doing Truth Quest Calgary, Sarah that put on the conference, I mean, she's dealing with being booted out of the largest church in Canada right now. It's something that, I'm very passionate about. I'm not done with the 2 churches in my city. But again, we got to do this in love. We got to stand for the truth and look at this as a bigger issue overall. And, our conduct and how we approach this, we're representations and we got to make sure that, we do things right. So absolutely. I'm looking forward to, having more dialogue with these churches in the future. Hopefully maybe they'll be able to give you some interpretations of the Bible instead of bringing NASA and photographs to the table, especially when you're doing a Bible study, right? So, you and I talked about a bunch of stuff as far as kind of the future and where things need to go, especially when it comes to the church. And, it's going to be, really good in that sense as things progress. And another news, I've started working on, a lot more of the footage that I shot in California for my new documentary film. And I was going through a lot of your footage and it's looking really good. It turned out awesome. The audio, lighting, everything's looking really good. But it's always one of those things when you start into a project, almost like writing a book when you're on that first page and you write that first sentence, you know what I mean? It's like, where do I begin? So I'm kind of going through a lot of that footage, but I'm looking forward for July and most of August to really, get into that footage and start editing. And it's a lot of fun when you get into all that kind of stuff. Nice. But it's great that, we're talking about all these things, exposing the world's lies and celebrating truth. And one person that has been doing this longer than pretty much anyone, including myself, for a very long time is our special guest tonight. And, we've become friends. I've admired his work for a very long time. I think he's got respect across the board as what he's brought to the truther community, not just with Flat Earth, more recently in his journey, but other critical areas that have happened that have woken up a lot of people to find out that this world isn't what it seems. And it's my pleasure to have RussianVids, RV. Thanks for being on the show.
Yes, Robbie, I appreciate that. And also, Pastor Nate, thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah. It's awesome.
It's really good. It's an honor. We've been thinking for quite some time to get you on, obviously with schedules and stuff, but it's great to be able to finally have you on. What I wanted to do first, though, because a lot of people know about a lot of research, but let's get personal here at the start. Let's kind of talk about your journey. Maybe explain, how did you become a Christian in the first place, and then secondary, then what led you into the truther type community in the stuff that you researched. But I'd just like to know kind of your background as far as how did you become a Christian? Who was RV in the past?
Yes, Robbie. Growing up, my parents from Russia, Orthodox Christians. So I was raised in a Christian household, but at the same time, from the very start, I questioned everything. Just attending church and just as a child, as a very young child, 4 or 5 years old, playing in the front of the house, and we're playing tag or football, whatever we're playing as children in the streets. And on a break, one of my brothers, a little bit older than me, mentioned, he goes, the earth is spinning, right? This earth is spinning. I looked up at the sky and I'm looking around. I said, no, we're not spinning. So at a very early age, and I really believe people are born, God, of course, instill souls in us, and everybody has their own traits and gifts and strengths and weaknesses. And some people are not as influenced, but getting back to the religious aspect, believing, in a creator, and religion per se, I've always, like I said, I've always questioned, what religion is right? How do I know, what if I was born into a Muslim family? Would I be a Muslim? I used to think this way as a young child. So I was critical about everything. And I truly, when it comes down to it, I always believe in a creator. I believe, there's no way we came in this world basically starting from an explosion into a disc. They say this world was created into a disc that formed into a ball. And that's the funny thing. They say it started as a disc. So that's just mockery right there. But, and this disc formed into a ball. So from this disc to ball, basically when it comes down to our great ancestors is a rock, came from a ball, this from basically rock, and it's completely utterly ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, it's like the Bible says, question all things, and we should, and not just blindly accept anything. And that's part of my whole repertoire and outlook of life. And I think we should all question all things, and definitely separate beliefs from things that could be proven. And that's a good foundation to start when you look at this world. And as you dig, you should have a solid foundation of just because, for example, the media is credible, they're credible, so we just have to take their word on things. Or science, this scientist sounds credible, so we're just going to believe him. No, I said this so many times. If 1,000 scientists make a claim, they need to back up their claim through science. Exactly. And if it's not, then it becomes a belief if they can't prove it through science. Mm-hmm. So not to go in too long, but this is my basic outlook and life and growing up, like I said, as a very young child, knowing, this earth is not spinning. I knew that right away. I mean, it's very obvious. But also when it comes to politicians, as a very young child, I remember I must have been 5 years old watching the Ronald Reagan, Jimmy Carter debate. Even at 5 years old, I can see these people were very plastic. They aren't real. They look like actors. Mm-hmm. I couldn't articulate at the time, but I can sense these people weren't real at a very, very young age. So, it's just a sense about me, about this world. And going through school, I never felt the need to conform and to fit in and to follow trends. So when you're like a free thinker, you don't feel like the need to belong and be part of a group, you're definitely going to be more critical about things. You're not going to be influenced by your peers. So you have a different outlook on life. And again, when it comes to life, a lot of people, they're desperate to fit in. They're desperately liked and accepted by their peers. When you do that, you're going to alter. You're going to have to, you're going to basically have to alter who you are to fit in society. And that's most of society. And that's where it that's the stem of all the problems is people want to be liked and accepted and fitting in and not going against the grain.
So, like, what was it that got you to do your first? I mean, and what year was it when you did your first Russian Vids YouTube channel? Because I know you're on your about 56th channel by now, right?
Yeah, something like that, or something might say the 33rd channel.
yeah.
But yeah, it must have been shortly after YouTube started. I was all over YouTube looking at things. Of course, 9/11. I believe my first channel was approximately 2008, 2009. In 2009, 2010s when I really first started making videos on truth. And of course, we all start off as covering the moon, so-called moon landings and 9/11. And then, well, a lot of people were basically spinning wheels covering those two topics. I was looking at other things in the media, and going back a little bit, as far as the globe's concerned. I remember as a child looking at a globe and just being bewildered and amazed to believe water can conform to outside of a ball. I would tell anybody that was with me when I was looking at a globe. I just can't believe these oceans can stick to the side of this ball Earth. It's just unbelievable. And I knew about the flat Earth theory as a young child, but I said, yeah, but water fell over the side. So by default, I say it must be a globe, but this is unbelievable. So I've always had that outlook. So I was never invested in the ball Earth as a young child. So it was a very easy transition for me, making videos, knowing we're being lied to in a grand scale. And basically, when I really started getting to flat Earth was about approximately 2012. There was a YouTube creator named Benjamin Donkey, and he would basically just talk about the world we're living in and all the psyops that are taking place. And towards the end of the video presentation, he would show the blue marble, and he says people worship this imaginary blue marble, and that really planted me. I'm like, wow, this guy, this is something I've always had in the back of my mind, and it really made me think. I'm like, well, this guy to me has a lot of credibility. So I kind of like put it on the shelf, like, okay, and had it stored back there in back of my mind. And then as we progressed, 2014, 2015, then you had, of course, Mark Sargent come out and Dave Murphy and others. And, it was a very, like I said, a very quick transition for me to get involved with the flat Earth. And I didn't, right away start just pumping out flat Earth videos. Did my research, my first videos on the flat Earth. Basically, I set up my viewers. I had a good amount of subscribers. So I knew there would be a lot of backlash on my channel for covering the flat Earth. So basically, I said, this is something we need to look at. There's something to consider. Basically, I made it like I'm on the fence, but I'm leaning towards flat Earth. So it wasn't like, hey guys, I'm a flat earther now. It was a gradual progression with my first couple videos, and then boom, I just just started making flat Earth videos and talking about many aspects of the flat Earth. And of course, I got backlash, and people say, you're hurting your credibility. I said, and I told people, I said, look, you don't think for a second. I thought long and hard about this before I came out and started making these videos on flat Earth. It wasn't like an overnight thing. This was a process. So, this is a hard thing. This is one thing we all have to realize as truthers. Of course, there's a lot of truthers out there that can't jump aboard this. Now, for example, imagine someone that believes in voting, believes in the whole political system, believes in, all these events that happen throughout the world. I don't know if we could talk about those events, but I'll just glaze over that. These events that happen, they believe these are real, but now you're going to convince them or tell them the Earth is flat with the horrible stigma that's been placed on it throughout our whole lives, all of society. So it's a very hard pill to swallow. It's a very large pill to swallow for not only people that are involved with truth, but people that are dead asleep in society. You could pretty much forget it. So it's a very, very difficult path to go down. But I'm glad I took that path, and I said right away, if this flat Earth, back in 2015, I said, if this flat Earth is a psyop, it's false, this will go away rather quickly. It's not.
You had a bunch of people leave, but I would imagine that there were a lot of people, because of the respect they had for your research, they took it a little bit more serious.
Well, Robbie, what happened was actually there's people that said to me, "Hey, look, I really respect you and your work when it comes to covering the psyops. I can't go where you're going as far as Flat Earth is concerned, but I'll still watch your other videos." Mm-hmm. And I got some people, of course, that I'm going to unsub. I just can't go there. I'm like, that's fine, but you're going to come back at a later date. And a lot of people did. Mm-hmm. And that's nice. What happened. So, like I said, it's a very tough pill to swallow with a very bad stigma around it. But to me, I don't let others dictate my thoughts. I look at things without peer pressure. That never affected me. Like I said, going back to my childhood. So I haven't changed in that respect, Mm-hmm. So a big aspect for me and all of society is, we're told about, gravity supposing water, holding water at the bottom of a ball earth, at 5 years old in kindergarten. And how many children go into the next grade and first grade and say, I wonder if they're lying to us. It's what it comes down to is children that grow up, to be adults. When they don't question things as children, they grow up to be adults, not questioning authority as well. So yes. They didn't question authority when they're younger. They grow up to be adults, and they just basically go along with the program. And who wants to start all over? You invested so much time and effort in the school system, from elementary school to college for a lot, university as well. Who wants to start all over? And too many people are heavily invested. I look at it this way, you get two individuals. Say if someone's not that articulate, and you have someone that's supposedly well-read, very articulate, but if they're fed false information, they might articulate it very well, but that has no, the way, it doesn't matter how well someone can articulate a lie. If you cannot prove what you're articulating, it doesn't matter. And that's the foundation of it. Is people are always jumping, oh, but I went to a university, so I know. Well, unless your university showed you through science that we're living on this water rocket ball that's zipping through space, it's not science. It's just, on a blackboard in a school textbook. So to me, like I said, it's not science. It's just a belief until you could prove it through science.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, in summer of 2015 is when I created my channel, and I know you were very active in, putting out a lot of videos on this topic. And, I would say that you have a good pulse of not just truth or, topics, but also flat Earth. And I wanted to ask you, what have you thought as far as, I mean, you've obviously got into it since 2012. You've seen a lot of things, now it's 2019. What do you think overall is the state of the community? Anything that we should be aware of, or you think, the future, what's in store in the next 5-10 years, in your opinion, based on what you've seen?
Yeah, great question, Robbie. What I've seen is, going back in time, 2015 to where we are today, I see a major, a drastic, change, and a lot of people, are aware of this conversation taking place. Unless they live under a rock, it's of course, it's been covered in the media. Thanks to you, Robbie, Flat Earth Conference, the international conference has made the mainstream media. Millions upon millions of people know about this, so it's definitely talk, at the local bars or where people congregate. I heard like earlier today in a podcast that someone was at a restaurant, a fast food restaurant, and they heard people talking about the flat Earth, over eavesdropping, hearing people talking about the flat Earth. So this is a very important discussion that's taken place with a lot of people. And anything new, it takes time to process, absorb. But again, getting back to your question, it's definitely, it's definitely reached a point where it's at the threshold where I think we're at the point where it can really progress, and it's going to bite the mainstream media in the butt by giving it the exposure it's getting. Like for example, the Newsweek article that came out June 14th with the cover, saying the Earth is I might not have it verbatim, but basically the Earth is a ball, but there's the flat Earth community is growing. Yes. That type of thing. So people are, millions upon millions of people are seeing this. Like, wow, what is going on?
Yeah, that was all at the newsstands. I mean, that was in the actual front page of the magazine at the newsstands. That's actually not just online. That's in supermarkets.
Yeah, exactly. That's something that's reached all these grocery stores when you go to Safeway or Publix or wherever you shop. It's right there when you go to checkout. So yeah, it's amazing. And all the people such as yourself that have stuck at this for so long and haven't given up. And of course, you're leading it with the International Flat Earth Conference. And bottom line is also another aspect. You're asking about the whole community at all overall. The unfortunate thing is, you have a lot of ball earthers. I believe we live on this rocket water ball that's traveling, 500,000 miles an hour through space. There's not a lot of infighting with them, but unfortunately, it's an issue with a lot of infighting with flat earthers, and
yes,
because unfortunately, of course, we do not have a consensus. There's and people argue and fight over it, but the foundation is water's level, and NASA's lying. And you mentioned the churches, Robbie, earlier, and how a lot of preachers, pastors are just believing NASA and photos. Well, they're not even photos. We know that they're images,
sure.
and I know what you meant, but the bottom line is, unfortunately, a lot of churches, they're just, knowingly or unknowingly deceiving the congregation. Are they really preaching out of the Bible, or just repeating what they've been told? It doesn't matter what I'm getting at. What they're preaching, the heliocentric model doesn't match up with the Bible. And for anybody
RV, one interesting thing happened to me before I was fired. A couple of months before I was fired, I got an email from a local preacher in Toledo, and he says, "Hey, I got this message. We've got a conflict already at our church that night. We've already got a guest speaker, but he says there's this brother in Christ who lives in Florida or whatever, and he's got a connection to a guy who works for NASA, who's this Christian, NASA guy." And he emails me this schedule, and he says, this guy is going around to different churches and, sharing presentations about creation and blah, 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 blah. And he'll be in the Toledo area on these dates, yada, yada. And everything's free. And, just all kinds of red flags were popping off, RV, when I saw that. I was like, wait a second, this guy works for NASA. He's traveling. It's free, which means his expenses are being paid. And, how many churches and how many pastors would say, growing up sci-fi geeks like myself would say, oh, yeah, this is awesome. We're going to have a NASA dude come, and he's a believer, and he's going to do a presentation. So basically, he's going to present before the entire congregation with the stamp of approval of the pastor or the elder board or whoever's running the show there. So, yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, and all of us, I mean, that's the one thing too. Sometimes we come down on these churches or other Christians that really can't get this, but we all were there at one point. We were all doing respective ministries, and we were, leading our lives, looking into truth, and we still hadn't come to this fully. You know what I mean? Like we didn't grasp it. So I always say that this is supernatural. Some people wake up in 10 seconds, some people it takes 10 years, and really it's all in God's timing. I just think that, we got a lot of work to do, like RB was saying, as far as, the community and what's coming. This is definitely an uphill battle, but it's rewarding. I always say that it's not always going to be easy, but it's very rewarding. The truth sets people free.
Yeah. Well, one thing is, over the years, I've always had in the back of my mind about living on this supposed ball earth and, people upside down and all that nonsense. Taking a trip down to LA or across to LA, I should say, from San Francisco, I used to sit back, say in the 90s, and think, when are we going around this curve? It seems pretty flat to me. I have this in my mind when I'm driving, and I'm not saying the earth is flat at the time, but I'm just questioning it. I'm just thinking, I'm going up the grapevine. I'm like, we're going up this major hill and basically mountainous. And I'm like, when is this earth curving? So I've always had that in the back of my mind. I'm not like, it was just something that would just pop in my head and just kind of dissipate and disappear. It wouldn't be like I'm thinking about this hours at a time. It's just a thought that passed through my head. So this is things that I just look at the world and again, it goes back to my childhood. And one thing I always say too, and we know this, but for anybody listening in, the implications, it's not the size, it's the lie. It's not the size or the shape of this world. It's the lie that's the foundation of this world. And that, to me, that's what I tell people all the time. when the foundation's a lie, everything after that lie is a lie as well. So they have to continue to lie after the initial lie. And this is the foundation that we came from, this explosion from nothing. And we're basically monkeys living on a spinning ball, which is utterly ridiculous. And, basically, when it comes down to it, those that run this world know, if it comes from mainstream science, if it comes from, the mainstream media, people are just going to swallow it up. And this is something I'm going to say. I'm going to be careful what I say here because it might sound bad, but, it's like this. If tomorrow CNN announced that NASA was nothing but a psyop and the Earth is actually flat, guess what? Those people that were deniers of the flat Earth overnight, they're literally going to be flat earthers. And that's a scary thought because, for this reason, they're not giving any thought. They don't know the dimensions. Like if you line up 1,000 people in society in the streets of any major city, you ask them, what's the radius? What's the diameter? What's the circumference of this ball Earth you're supposed to be living on? A majority, of course, would not know. So it's basically these people have no idea what is going on. There's a quote by Noam Chomsky saying the population doesn't know what's going on, and they have no idea that they don't know what's going on. And they're it's like that one comedian, George Carlin, stating how, people are just smart enough to operate the machines, do their jobs, but they really don't know the implications of what's happening.
Like being in the Matrix, Matrix.
So that's what it comes down to. To me, the important aspect is, if someone might ask, so why is it so important? Again, it's about the Creator. And it's a very sad fact for me. People living from birth to death, thinking that they're living on this spinning rocket water ball. Their whole life is a lie. I think it's very sad for someone to say, for example, live 75, 80 years, and basically they're a slave to this system, paying taxes, living in this world, and not knowing basically everything they've been taught is a lie. That's a very sad existence to me. This is why it's so important, a very, very important. Beyond that, people say, well, why does it matter? Again, it brings us back to them hiding a Creator, of course.
Oh, 100%.
NASA,
yeah, 100%.
NASA, $52 million a day, a budget that could be used to
It's 56 now. It's 56 now. They raised it.
Oh, yeah. With inflation. Yeah. And it's just going to get worse, and they're going to have new projects. They're going to need more funding, of course, with supposedly going to Mars. So the bottom line is that money could be well spent, helping those in need, the homeless, and other things. But of course, the bottom line is people that run this world, they look at things, of course, the betterment for them and keeping society dumbed down so they're easier to manipulate and control. So this is what it's about. It's all about control. And of course, like we stated many times, hiding the Creator, and hiding the Creator makes them gods. It makes them makes us believe. Of course, people believe.
Well, that's the title. That's the title of my book. It's Scientism Exposed: Hiding the True Creator of Creation. And what I want to ask you, RV, is how do you know the true Creator of creation? How do you know that Jesus Christ is the truth? Because, like you said before, there's a lot of religious systems, there's a lot of beliefs out there. But the question, and what's really important is, what is the truth? What would you say to people that say, yeah, but RussianVids, how do you know that your God or your Creator is the truth? How did you come to identify that Jesus Christ is the truth, the way, and the life?
Well, it to me is very simple. The Muslim, for example, liberals, they don't attack Buddha, they don't attack Allah, they're always attacking Christ. All the anti Jesus Christ movies, and it's in the music, sometimes hidden in plain sight. For those that see my channel, for example, that see my videos, for example, Def Leppard, underneath their breath, they're playing a riff, and you can hear the lead singer Joe Elliott say, Jesus Christ is dead, underneath his breath. It's clear as day. But people are so busy enjoying the music, they're not listening to the lyrics. And you can clearly hear it. And there's one song, Love Bites, at the very end, you can hear a robotic voice of Joe Elliott stating, Jesus Christ, go to hell. So for, their hatred of Christ is very real. And they're hiding this subliminally, in plain sight. Their hatred of Christ is not imaginary. It's very real. And again, all this hate of Jesus Christ, and it's not even they do it in plain sight, and they do it hidden as well. And and for example, someone like in the mainstream, like for example, Oprah Winfrey, stating there's many ways to God. And someone in the audience said, no, there's only one way, and that's through Christ. So, basically cutting out Christ, who's the only way to the Father, is demonstrated. And you see the connection is made. This is very important. I want to touch upon really quickly about Oprah Winfrey, which I've covered. Satanists work on opposites. In the Satanic Church, they say the Lord's Prayer backwards. They learn how to walk backwards, read backwards, doing things in opposites. So you'll have like Oprah Winfrey. She'll have Harpo Studios. Oprah, is Harpo's Oprah backwards. It's reversed. Mm-hmm. She has this one placard in her house. She's doing an interview, in her home, in the background. And it says, "Be still and know that I am." And of course, we know, biblically, it's "Be still and know that I am God." But God has been removed from this placard in her. And so they put these like Easter eggs during these interviews. It's in the background, but it's there and it's clear as day. So their hatred for the Creator is apparent. You have to be a yes man or woman to make it in this world, to be spotlight on TV. And all these televangelists, they are deceivers. Every single one of them. They're hand selected. They're just playing a role on the world stage. Like Joel Osteen. You'll see his his congregation. You'll see the spinning ball earth behind him. He's basically laughing at the congregation. He would not have a position. He would not have his spot unless he was part of this matrix. How do you create a matrix? Every key position, from the politicians to people in Hollywood to the music industry, all these people, and of course the televangelists, all these people are selected to be in these positions. So that's how you control create a matrix and control society. They don't question. And I got to be careful what I say here with certain events. I don't know if we can go in that direction, but major events that I call hoaxes and psyops, they go along with the program, calling these real events, and they're not questioning the government, of course. So again, this is how you create a matrix and you control. Science is controlled, mainstream religion with the televangelist is controlled, and this is how they control society. So either you're left or right, and this is the option. They give you options A, B, and C when it's really D. It's none of the above.
Yeah, the cool thing with Revolution Radio, obviously, it's not censored, but obviously, I put these on YouTube afterwards. So if you're going to go into deeper stuff, I don't want to restrict you with what you're saying, but then do it in hour 2. Because we can at least put hour 1 on YouTube, and then if people want to go to hour 2, they can get we can go deep. You know what I mean? And I'll make sure it doesn't go on YouTube, because I would never want you to come on the show and have you have the feeling that you can't really express and say what you want to say. Like I said, you've done a lot of work, and you know how the censorship's going on in YouTube, and it's unfortunate. And that's what's great about platforms like Revolution Radio or Truth Frequency Radio is these are great platforms to support. They're listener supported, and it really helps them keeping the airwaves completely censor-free, open. You can mention, whatever you want. But I say to guests, if you want to go into some, more controversial topics that might get, in trouble on YouTube, we'll do that in hour 2. So, hey, I got to ask you a question. RV. Being in California, I got to know this. Being, on the pulse of things, man, it seems like it's getting really bad in California as far as the liberal, as far as the mindset when it comes to the expression of everything that is against God, the created order, when it comes to the LGBT, all these type of things. What's it like for you being in California, seeing probably one of the most depraved states in the country?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Robbie. Yeah, of course, liberal central. I live very close to San Francisco, and basically, I'm really with my stance on many things. If you're just a conservative living here, let alone speaking about the government and a lot of the psychological operations that are taking place, you're really going to be outcast. But that's what it comes down to is living out here. It's I talk to a lot of people. Christianity is
very hated in California overall. Yes. Do you get that feeling?
Yes, that's exactly it. A lot of most people you talk to out here, they're going to be liberals. Expect when you talk to someone in the streets, they're going to be a liberal, and they're going to believe in evolution. They're going to believe everything that they're told by CNN and MSNBC and Fox News is hated out here. Even though they're part of the right left paradigm. They're really, and again, basically what it comes down to is most people you run into here, they're not believers. And when I run across believers, it's great to hear. but it's not too often when you run into people in the street. So, yeah, but when it comes down to a lot of things that I talk about my channel, if I strike up a conversation with a stranger in the street, in a local store, grocery store, whatever, and they want to go in that direction with politics, and I just tell them, it's, basically it's a bunch of BS, and I get into that. And depending how far we go, I'll even bring up psyops. I'll bring up a flat earth. I have two policemen. I bring up Freemasonry to policemen, and they react differently. Some admit to hearing about it. Some deny it. I've actually talked to certain policemen who claim they never heard of Freemasonry. That I look them up online. I see them part of like the Rotary Club, which is a branch of Freemasonry. So they're definitely concealing a secrets type of thing. So some are not going to tell you the full truth, of course, and protect that they're part of the brotherhood. But bottom line is California. It's of course Hollywood and the whole scene out here, from San Francisco to Hollywood, and not too far away in Nevada, Sin City. You got those three major cities, which is as liberal as liberal can get. And I look at San Francisco, California, as the liberal capital of the world. This is where the Satanic Church was founded by Anton LaVey.
That's right. Yes. That's right.
Yeah, and of course, the basically the gay capital of the world. And really, when you look at San Francisco, again, being you look at the structures. You have the Trans-American Building, which is basically a tower, a pyramid. You have the Golden Gate Bridge, which is painted orange. It's called the Golden Gate, but painted orange, with orange being 33 in numerology. So, and again, built in 1933. So all these aspects of everything they've done and with the architecture and everything is Masonic, and Freemasonry and Satanism is one of the same. It's intertwined and with the worship of the goat, and we can get into that a little bit with Freemasonry and
like an hour or two. I definitely want to go into like you mentioned the capital with San Francisco. I definitely want to go into the LGBT movement, the beginnings with Harry Hay, the homosexual movement, and all that. I'd like to go a lot deeper in hour two, because I think this is not just an attack on creation, but also an attack on the created order. I say this a lot on the program, but really even male and female is under attack these days. So yeah, let's get more in detail. Let's go more in depth in hour two, because I think that you can share a lot of stuff when we get into the more controversial issues that probably YouTube would flag and would have removed and get strike. Obviously, Revolutionary Radio will allow us to go deep, because these are pressing issues on the family, on the church, on Christians, basically on humanity, and they're important to talk about. So what I need to ask RV is, when it comes to everything that you've kind of covered, when you always talk about flat earth, what do you say to people why this is important? Those people that are just like, dude, what does it matter if we're on a ball? And again, you talk about hiding the creator, but really, what do you tell people when it comes to getting serious about why the issue of the true creation is important?
Yeah, it definitely proves the creator, like we're saying. And again, it's not the shape, it's the lie and the implications of an explosion creating other worlds, and they're definitely pushing the aliens from other worlds, and we're just like this cosmic accident, and it's really comes down to, of course, pushing evolution and all that nonsense that goes along with it. So this is such an important topic, and basically what it comes down to is this is all we have, this world that God has created, and all we have are the sun, the moon, and the stars. And people talk about planets. What about planets? Well, all they are by definition, from the foundation, all they are wandering stars. Why do so-called planets shine like stars? That's all they are, stars. Why do they call them falling stars? Because they're literal stars. They say, oh, they're meteors. No, they're literal falling stars. It's like when you enter a planetarium, you sit back and you look, and if you didn't know, and if you're told, for example, if you were born and raised, as ridiculous as it might sound, if you're born and raised in a planetarium, and you look at that sky and you were told those stars in that planetarium are millions of miles away, and you live there your whole life, then say at the age of 40, you walk out and say, wow, look at that. You could see it's only several hundred, 100 feet or less, 100 feet or so, that planetarium building, and it's like a truth in movies where the one movie Logan's Run, where they're living in a dome, or movies like Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, in the song like where it goes by Tina Turner, we don't need another hero. We don't need to know the way home. All we want is what's beyond Thunderdome, and of course,
you're a total '80s guy.
Oh yeah, no.
I can just tell.
What I'm getting at is this is important, and I don't want to drift off too far off topic, but it's very relevant, and it's a very important aspect that people need to realize. There's nothing really hidden between all the lies. They're going to give us truth. Yes. So when they talk about, like I said, the concept of a movie like Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, they don't just pull this out of thin air. This is the biblical concept of, again, why does thunder echo? We're in a contained system. It's like the very first dome stadium that was ever created. There's a baseball team in Houston, Texas called the Colt 45s back in the 60s. And then when NASA, they had their headquarters in Houston, and the name Houston comes from Scotland. It comes from Hugh Stone. It's the hewers of stone, or Freemasons. So they have a Johnson Space Center, and Johnson being a 33 name, in Houston or Houston, Texas. And they created this baseball team. They changed the name of the Colt 45s to the Houston Astros. This is the Astros is based on Astros as astrology. It's the stars. It's space. And this dome stadium with the rainbow seats under the dome. It's a glass ceiling. They had groundskeepers that were wearing orange astronaut, outfits. Mm-hmm. So, between innings, they're wearing their orange uniforms, orange being 33 numerology. You had in the parking lot itself, you had the North Star, Polaris, in the parking lot itself. You cannot have Polaris stationed in the middle of the baseball field under the dome. You can put it in the outfield, but the bottom line is the concepts are so important in this world. If people can read through symbolism and signs and symbols, such as the Sky Dome in Toronto, the Sun Dome in Florida, they imploded it, but the Seattle Kingdom. Yes. Why is it called the Kingdom? This is the word kingdom. It's the kingdom. It's God's kingdom. It's God's kingdom. Yes. It's literal. It's in Corinthians in the Bible. The kingdom. With an E, for dome. So literally, if people just, look deeper and realize, there's so much truth right in front of our faces, like an airplane, this is something I want to talk about. I'm sorry if I ramble on a little bit, but these are important aspects. For example, back in 2015, I made videos on satellites being a hoax. And, all we get are these images. They're not real photos. And the bottom line is, after my video presentation, I was contacted by someone who told me he worked for Rogers Telecommunication in Canada. He goes, "You're absolutely right. How do I know this?" He stated that during his time working for Rogers, he stated how they owned 4 sports franchises, and they're all worth in excess of $100 million each. And he said, here's one thing though, with all those, $100 million sports franchises, he says, we don't have a single satellite in space. And what did I do for them when I worked for Rogers Telecommunication? I laid under ocean fiber optic cable. Yeah, that's how it works, through fiber optic cables, under ocean cables, and high powered ground towers. So that gets into, this is a very important key aspect. Look at anybody that talks about Google Earth. They say, oh, there's proof of satellites in space. Here's the thing is, you can zoom in to any intersection. Go to any city, zoom in an intersection. You'll literally see cars. You'll see literal people. You'll see, you see bushes, shrubs, trees. You'll see the finest detail. Now, when you back out, you go from the city, then it goes from real airplane, basically footage, to CGI ball art. So this has been programmed. So what I'm getting at is this. Why doesn't, supposedly these satellites in space, why don't we see from any of these imagery we get from Google Earth, for example, planes flying through, flying around the globe, ships parked under Antarctica when they're doing expeditions supposedly in Antarctica. We never see this. There's nothing real about what they're doing. There's nothing practical that they're doing, like zooming in and again seeing a cargo ship. on the side of the ball. If you could zoom in an intersection and see individual people, there should be no problem whatsoever from space supposedly getting these images.
Exactly.
So to me, there's nothing real about what they're doing. It's very plastic. It's very artificial. And everybody that's defending the ball Earth, they're just holding on to their religious beliefs that they were told, and they can't let it go because ego is the biggest enemy of truth. You know, they don't want to start over. They think they have a good, solid foundation of this world. They have a good idea what's happening. They have their debates. They talk to their friends, and people are full of ego, and they can't let that go. And they just have to continue on. So again, it comes down to people heavily invested in the system. You know, these people are maybe well spoken. They have they're well paid in their job. It's like this. You look at someone working Wall Street. You know, they have a beautiful home, $100,000 car, and they're reading the Wall Street Journal and just believing everything that's printed in there without proof, because these people are credible. These people must be credible. Why would they lie? That kind of mindset. So basically, what it comes down to is, when you talk to any of these people that believe in the ball Earth, the most simple things that, as we know, all of us here, we've talked about things like this, about, like I said, the dimensions of the so-called ball Earth, and something simple as Halley's Comet. Do these people understand? Halley's Comet is supposedly going to hit this ball Earth. Do they understand this? Halley's Comet's moving at this amazing speed, supposedly, as we're also moving at this amazing speed, and we're at this collision course. They believe we're this stationary spinning water ball, and we're like a sitting duck, and Halley's Comet is coming right at us. They don't understand. They don't understand what's supposedly happening. So they don't have this foundation. And I'll tell you this: they do learn more by speaking to flat earthers, because again, you talk to 1,000 people about the heliocentric model, and I'll tell you, majority would have no idea what it is, and they can at least walk away learning more. It's like, wow, that flat earther actually.
Yeah, that is a good point. That is a good point, because flat earthers are very educated on the heliocentric ball model, and you're right. Most people, including myself, I had no idea of anything, distances, circumferences, none of this, nor does anyone else, which is interesting.
Yeah. Well, one thing I want to talk about too, one aspect of this amazing creator, and before I get into that, I want to mention like someone like Al Gore and how he pushes global warming, and the lies go so deep. Not only is global warming a lie, the globe's a lie.
Yes.
And how do you flood a ball? If you believe in global warming and the coastlines are going to be flooded, how do you flood a ball?
Exactly.
It makes absolutely no sense. So all these coasts from the so-called northern and southern hemisphere are going to be flooded. Unbelievable how people have been manipulated to believe this nonsense. But when you realize the manipulation, you look back and you just laugh at this imaginary ball Earth that's been fed to us. Here's something interesting. You look at a movie like, and I said this many times, movies are always going to be propaganda portrayed as entertainment. Like you watch the Star Wars movies and all these alien races, all these different planets, and what people miss all the time is symbolism. And even though, I'm not pro-Mason at all, but a lot of Masons do have a lot of good quotes. And one is by Manly P. Hall stating, once, mankind learns the language of symbolism, a great veil will fall from their eyes. And that gets into George Lucas's Lucasfilm logo. Lucasfilm in numerology is 33, in Pythagorean numerology. And what you see what the logo is, Lucasfilm is above a dome. And underneath that dome, you see the sun and the moon. And you can almost see how it's making like that movement, the way it's being portrayed. And it's LTD underneath, like limited, Lucasfilm Limited under the dome. And it's clear as day. So before people watch this fantastical movie about alien races and outer space and flying rocket ships, he's showing you the truth of this world before the movie starts. Before every Star Wars movie, they're showing the flat Earth model. And here's something interesting. Back in 1997, George Lucas is quoted in the book saying, why is the public so stupid? So they don't understand that within, and there's people say, well, that's just one example. There's multiple examples. For example, look at Star Trek. Gene Roddenberry, admitted Freemason, the Starship Enterprise, you have Captain Kirk and Scottish is church. You have a Scottish engineer. You have Spock, who's half human, half Vulcan, and he has the devilish type ears, but he hates his human side. He's like one of the fallen ones. He represents the fallen angels. Like, he despises his human side. You know, and that's like the people that run this world. They're the bloodline of the fallen ones, and they are half Nephilim and half human, but they despise the human side. So they're representing Spock represents that type of aspect. But the bottom line is, you know, I find it interesting. There's actual flat Earth references going back to the original Star Trek, where Captain Kirk and Spock are on this one planet, and it's like they're like American Indians. They're like these nomads type of people living in this world that they're traveling to, and they're talking about the history of Earth. And at a time, people were so basically almost prehistoric, and they actually believe the Earth is flat. And they're throwing that in there, like, you know, they were basically uneducated. They didn't know better. They thought the world was actually flat. So they're throwing in that programming with Star Trek. Here's an interesting aspect. Star Trek was from 1966 to 1969. This coincides with the whole entire moon landing in space. And remember one thing very important. NASA actually named one of their so-called space shuttles the USS Enterprise after the TV show. So you see how it's all intertwined, interconnected, where so-called entertainment is part of programming. That leads me into William Shatner, who went from the captain of the Starship Enterprise. After that went off the air in '69, they didn't need it anymore because it served its role as far as moon landing programming. Now you move ahead to the $6 Million Man, which he guest starred as an astronaut later on, and the producer was a man named Kenneth Johnson, and again, Johnson being a 33 name. William Shatner played an astronaut who went in space, and he was asked to describe what he sees. He goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, you're not going to believe what I see. Earth is flat. It's flat as a table." So this is a duality aspect where William Shatner played the role of the captain of the USS Enterprise. Now he plays a U.S. astronaut in space saying the Earth is flat. Now, fast forward to 1983. The same director of the $6 Million Man TV series, now he created this TV series called V for Visitors. And again, it's all about programming, how these alien invaders come to Earth and they offer mankind a vaccine that will cure all cancers. And what it comes down to, there's this one female supreme leader. Her name was Diana, and there's this one photo of hers.
Hold that thought, Russian Vids. We're going to break. It's been amazing first hour. You're listening to Celebrate Truth Radio with Robbie Davidson and Pastor Nate Wolfe. We'll be back right after these messages.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hey, welcome back to Celebrate Truth Radio. I'm your host, Robbie Davidson, and we got Pastor Nate Wolfe, and we are doing it with Russian Vids. For the first hour, we were getting into a lot of great information. We're going into hour 2 now, so continue where you left off, Russian Vids.
Yes, thank you, Robbie and Pastor Nate. Talking about the programming aspect, basically it's entertainment. It is programming. It's disguised as entertainment when it's actually programming. And again, with all the lies, they're going to present the truth. So the truth is out there, and they put it. It's like almost like the yin and the yang. They believe they have to. With all the lies, they're also going to give us Easter eggs of truth. So nothing's really concealed. It's hidden in plain sight. So getting back to V, the series, and Pastor Nate and Robbie, one important aspect about these aliens, they're basically supposedly like lizard people disguised as like humanoids. And again, they come from another world to supposedly save a mankind and offer these vaccines. And of course, it's all about deception. And the bottom line, like I was saying, was there's, with all the programming of these aliens and from outer space and the vaccines, all the truth is there. They show with the supreme leader, Diana, which I showed in videos many times, is she's literally hovering over a glass dome with a blue glass dome with all the constellations. When you zoom in it, it's like she's like playing the role of God and like blasphemy. Wow. She's over the world. She's hovering over the world. You literally see the sun and the moon within, even though it's a static still image, you see the circular motion it's making. It would make within the dome, and there's 4 corners to this dome. So they're presenting this, and people have no clue what's right in front of them. It's the biblical flat earth. And this is not by chance or coincidence they're putting this in there. And again, within all the programming, they're going to give us, just like George Lucas and the flat earth. So there's a theme of them doing this. And getting back to Star Trek, I should mention too, before there's Captain Kirk, there was in the pilot episode, it was a man named Christopher Pike. We know highly regarded Freemason Albert Pike, named after him. So all these concepts of Freemasonry are out there. And one thing I want to point out before I forget is so very important when it comes to Freemasonry and why they use their logo, their symbol with the how can I forget, the square and the compass. Yep. And this is biblical. The Creator used basically it states in the Bible how God would, during creation, basically using the compass to bound the waters, Yeah. And so literally these are the tools that were basically made that the Creator used to make this world, and with bounds and so
he inscribed a circle on the surface of the deep. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So they're literally putting, this is the foundation, and this is why they're big into the pillars and the foundation and the bricklayers. This is the foundation of this world, and it's right in plain sight. Here's something very interesting too. With all the UFO alien deception that's taking place, you look at the so-called Phoenix Lights, it's shaped like a Masonic square, the bottom part of the square and the compass itself. So they put their signs and symbols in plain sight. And of course, the Phoenix Lights, the Phoenix is named, it's a Freemasonic Phoenix rising from the ashes.
Real quick, yes. RussianVids.
Sure.
What do you think about the alien deception? Maybe give us your thoughts on that. Just because you brought that up.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting to. And the foundation, I'll get back to the Phoenix Lights, but sure. The foundation is basically Roswell, New Mexico, which just so happens to be located on the 33rd parallel with the supposed UFO crash. So that happened on the 33rd parallel. And that gets back to the Phoenix Lights, which is on the 33rd parallel. That gets back.
Sorry to interrupt, but does 33 have any correlation with the death of Jesus at 33?
Well, that's the thing, is there's nowhere in the Bible that specifically says 33.
True, that is point.
Yeah, but my line of thinking is this: when it comes to 33, it represents a third of the fallen angels.
Oh, the angels, yeah. The stars.
The stars. That's why they call them superstars. That's why they're Hollywood stars. That's why they have the stars on the walkways in Hollywood, as we know. Not to go off topic, but I sort of go on a tangent. But the name Hollywood, you have in Hollywood, you had Bewitched, all these movies based on witches and witchcraft, Harry Potter, and the foundation of Hollywood. When it comes down to it is, ancient Druids used to make wands, magic wands, from the holly tree. So literally Hollywood, holly tree, the Hollywood that was used to make the wands. This is why they named it Hollywood. It's basically witchcraft. So you see Mickey Mouse. I'll get into Disney. We'll get back to the I'm jumping around a lot. I know.
That's fine. No, just keep going. That's fine. Yeah. Just keep going, because this is amazing, and I'm sure everyone's really enjoying the wealth of knowledge that you have on so many different areas.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Robbie and Pastor Nate. So basically, when you see like Disneyland, the whole concept of Disneyland. You see Mickey Mouse with the wand and the witch's, the magician's hat, with the stars and the moon, just like Baphomet, in Freemasonry, the Masonic go-god. The bottom line is this, just the concept of Disneyland. It was created by a man named, of course, Walt Disney. Walt Disney and Chaldean numerology is 33. It's the address for Disneyland is 1313. Why 1313? 13, M is the 13th letter in the alphabet. So basically 13 is MM.
That's
Just
right.
like, when you turn the 2 M sideways, you get 33 with Mickey Mouse. The ears. People always look at the ears of Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse. They're rounded. Why? We don't see ears like that on mice. What's going on with that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, bottom line is, if you just can imagine a 3, you place a 3 over the ears, it'll fit perfectly over Mickey Mouse or Minnie Mouse's ears. So you have the concept of the 1313. It's on the 33rd parallel. Disneyland is in Anaheim. Anaheim is 33 in numerology. You have it in Orange County. Orange is 33 numerology. So all these concepts, you have Club 33, of course, with Disneyland.
Yep.
Now you jump over to Orlando, Florida, where they have Disney World. It just so happens to also be in Orange County, all the way in Florida.
Yes.
And you have the orange bird as the mascot. So this orange color, the only color numerology that is 33.
Maybe explain orange a little bit for people that are not too versed when it comes to it. Just for the layperson, maybe explain orange just so people can understand the significance of what orange represents.
Yeah, orange like a flame. It's like I said, it's the only color numerology that is 33. So, for example, like I said, the Golden Gate Bridge, even though it's called the Golden Gate, it's painted orange. You see Donald Trump. You see him with the orange makeup on his face, orange tint. There's many photos of him where his face has orange tint, but you look at his neck, his ears, you can tell that's not his real skin tone. These people are obsessed with that number 33, with symbolism. So it's literally everywhere when it comes to, like, for example, Orange Friday. Like, for example, I showed this in a video presentation with Citibank. Citibank just so happens to be 33 numerology. Okay, this one cover a few years back, they had a young female with the orange peel in her mouth smiling. You see the orange.
Yeah.
And they're like the symbolism of, so Citibank itself is 33 numerology. You have the orange. It's just like the movie Trading Places. Basically, the whole concept of Trading Places was trading commodities.
That was Eddie Murphy, right? Eddie Murphy
and Dan Aykroyd.
Yep.
It's duality. They're changing a rich man into a poor man, and a poor man into a rich man. That's duality. One's black, one's white. The whole commodity was orange, based on orange juice, with Florida oranges.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you have the Twin Tower scene with 9/11 in the clock. So there's a lot of symbology in these movies. Just like with NASA, why did they supposedly bring Tang to the moon? Because Tang is orange. Just like Hitler, people believe you'll have certain people, and I don't know if I want to even mention their names, but I'll just say there's certain individuals that will claim Hitler was some type of hero. When Hitler was a Mason on the world stage, he was propped up by the Vatican, who we all know are basically a bunch of devil worshippers. They're the synagogue of Satan itself, and they're promoting Hitler for Nazi Germany. And the bottom line is, during the so-called embargo with Coca-Cola, Nazi Germany invented Fanta Orange. This is symbolic with the orange. And also look at a lot of Hitler's books from Nazi Germany, that era. The books are orange. So signs, symbols, dates, numbers, and colors play a critical role, because the foundation with the confusion of tongues, Masons learned to converse without the use of speech. So again, numbers, signs.
So after the Tower of Babel, you're talking about after the compounding of language, they had a central kind of universal type of language amongst them all.
Yeah, exactly, Robbie and Pastor Nate. It's you can see it's a worldwide conspiracy when all these countries agree on using the same numeric system. Not one said, no, we're going to use our own symbols for numbers. No, they all agree. So you have a jet fighter in Iraq, the U.S., doesn't matter, Japan, they all use the same number system and everything. So the bottom line is, in this, people say, oh, this is just nonsense, or it's all hearsay. No, because I actually seen it in a Masonic encyclopedia where they said, due to confusion of tongues, again, Masons learn to converse without the use of speech. signs, symbols, again, hand signs. That's why when you see, for example, Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, and you see her make the diamond sign. Why is she making that diamond sign? It's because the diamond is 33 in numerology. So she's basically showing the number 33 through a hand symbol. Yep. And you'll see Hitler doing it. You'll see Trump do it. You'll see a lot of these famous politicians do it. So definitely, again, when people learn the language of symbolism, again, what Mason Manly P. Hall stated, a great veil will be lifted from their eyes and understanding. Like when you go through the streets, wherever you live, you'll see gas stations like Chevron, whatever gas station, or like say Petco. You'll see it's always red and blue colors. Red and blue make purple. It's purple's for royalty, and it's also for witchcraft. So this is the two come into one, like the Twin Towers almost. Two coming into one, like Back to the Future, the Twin Pines. They love these concepts of duality, bringing two into one. So there's definitely, and that's why they call them the blue bloods as well. With Queen Elizabeth, they say they have almost like a bluish hue to them, and I literally believe these people, of course, they're part of the bloodline of the fallen ones, and these are the people, the great deceivers of this world, and it's a really this world is literally nothing what it seems. It was presented on TV. It is nothing but program. That's why it's called television programming, literally. So real things happen in this world. When you walk out your door, you see things happen. But whatever you see, for the most part, it's not going to be ever covered in the mainstream media. They're just going to cover part of what they want us to see. So we're in the second hour going to get into this, where, for example, there are, of course, real shootings in Chicago, Illinois. There are real bad things happening that never makes it on CNN or Fox News. They only cover what they create, so they can control it from start to finish. Before the story is even aired for public consumption, they know how that story is going to conclude. Like, for example, a so-called shooting with Dylan Roof and supposedly killing all those black people in the church, I believe this is in South Carolina. And they always quote it. Dylan Roof supposedly indicted in 33 counts. I always look at license plates. It's very important when you look at one of these headline news stories. They always love to code license plates. Like there's a photo of Dylan Roof, and right behind him is just the back end of one car with a license plate. Usually, they blur out license plates, but in the media they don't, for this reason, because that license plate numerology is 33, with Dylan Roof wearing the black and white for Freemasonry. Here's something interesting about prisoners. They either wear black and white for Masonry or they wear orange.
Yes.
So you understand these are Masonic concepts. Like you see policemen, they'll have they wear the white gloves for Freemasonry. They take an oath, just like in Freemasonry. Many police departments, they have the black and white band around their head. Police and numerology is 33. So again, people need to understand concepts. They're not pulled out of thin air. There's always a backstory to everything they do. Just like when you attend school, why do students wear the cap and gown? The gowns is a Masonic type of thing. They're literally wearing a mortarboard on their heads. It's basically like a mason, a bricklayer. They're basically telling you we're shaping and forming your mind.
And the tassels, the
tassels is masonry, and every concept, the diploma, everything, and so all these concepts throughout society, is people think, for example, these school teachers are highly intelligent. All they're doing is reading out of a book, and they must basically teach directly out of the school textbook. If they don't, if word gets back, they're going against science, like the moon landing. Guess what? They're not going to have a job. It's going to get back to the administration, and they're going to be out of a job. Here's something interesting. Now, the flip side, the churches, they literally do not teach directly out of the Bible. They're teaching this heliocentric model where the Bible is clearly, flat Earth, geocentric, a flat Earth, and And so many things, like for example in Jeremiah 10, where the Bible is emphatically against the cutting down of Christmas trees, lining it with silver and gold. The Bible states not to do this. In Corinthians, where it talks about how long hair is shameful for men, and they show these images of Christ with long hair. People might come and say, "Oh, what about Samson?" Well, it's about Samson had locks, and it's about presenting yourself as a male should present himself as a male with short hair. A female, it states in the Bible how that long hair is supposed to cover her body. So these are literal. You go to these churches, they're not teaching directly out of the Bible. While they're preaching, they have Christmas trees behind them during Christ Mass. It's not Christ's birth; it's Christ's Mass, and literally, it's right there in front of us, where we know Christ, was born 6 months after John the Baptist. That will lead towards fall, not towards December. So we know this. We know basically, again, the churches teach directly. The schools teach directly out of the school textbooks, while the churches, they don't. They give you a bunch of nice stories, feel-good stories. They collect money, and knowingly or unknowingly, they're giving you false information. And definitely the televangelists, they're knowingly giving you false information. They never anything the government presents, government news, CNN, Fox News, they're never going to go against what's stated. They know their role. They know they can't do that. They're going to lose their ministry. So they know their role. And this is the controlled system that they have created, where it's completely rigged at every angle. And this is what people need to understand why. Oh, someone will talk. Who's going to talk when they control the churches? The churches know the role, the news stations. Here's something interesting. With all these people saying, well, all these, for example, Sandy Hook, an event like Sandy Hook happens, and someone might come out and say, in defense of believing what the official story, they'll say all these news outlets can't be lying. I'll tell them this. All these newsmen that you see sitting at the table behind the desk, who you see on TV, have any of these people that are repeating what they're told? Were they at Sandy Hook? Did they see any of this go down? No, they're getting all from one source. That's within Sandy Hook, Newtown, and the bottom line is too. This is what they do to really distract the public. Like, for example, when it came to Sandy Hook, they'll say it was Adam Lanza, but they'll also give you an alternative story that it was a guy walking the woods that was wearing camouflage pants. So was it Adam Lanza, or was it the guy walking the woods? When it's none of the above. Just like JFK. And for you guys out there that are new to my channel, this is really gonna strike hard at you, and just bear with me when it comes to JFK. JFK was one of the greatest deceivers of all time. There's many, many photos of him giving Masonic handshakes to many other politicians, such as Richard Nixon. Okay, now you have in 1961 JFK talking about going to the moon. Okay, and people say, well, JFK, he was against Masonry. This is exactly what they implemented with Newt Gingrich talking about before Trump became so-called
question for you. Do you actually think that presidents know about the moon? Like, do you think they're actually privy to that information?
At the highest levels, they know. I'm
talking presidents, because you know that presidents are just puppets, right? So what I'm saying is, would it be wise, especially with some rogue, all throughout the ages? I'm sure there'd be one that would just kind of spill the beans. My feeling on it is that I don't believe that they're the elite. The presidents are more the puppets. They're the ones that are put in place, kind of that illusion, right? So my question, and I'm not saying I disagree with the JFK thing, but when I hear the whole thing, like, this person's saying go to the moon, I think they're thinking, hey, that's really cool for any president to go to the moon. It puts them on the map. But I don't know if presidents are privy personally to the fact of knowing the greatest deceptions. They only know what they should know and know more. But anyways, I wanted to get your perspective on that.
Well, from what I know, from the very start, where you see, like, for example, George Washington, there's a bust statue of him in D.C., and it states Freemason and first president in that order. And all these presidents, these presidents are Masons. They're in the know. They're very high level Masons, but at the same time, they do as they're told. And
Correct.
what it comes down to getting back to JFK, you really got to hear me out in this. So
Sure.
when it comes down to it, for example, there's many photos with JFK with Wernher von Braun, of course, a former Nazi that was head of rocketry when it comes to NASA. There's many, many photos with them together. And of course, getting back to Walt Disney, the connection with Wernher von Braun and Walt Disney. You have the planet Pluto, and you have a dog named Pluto. And we know about the images of Pluto, the so-called planet with its outline shaped like the dog Pluto. So you see the connection with NASA and Disney. They're all intertwined. Now, getting back to JFK, the great deceiver, talking about how we're going to land men on the moon before the end of the decade. This is, of course, they knew they're going to fabricate it, of course, before the end of the decade, just several months before the end. It was like last minute, we're going to do last minute type thing. And of course, they orchestrate the whole thing. Here's the thing is people need to understand about JFK. Again, Kennedy being a 33 name, Johnson being a 33 name with his vice president, Lyndon Johnson. A lot of aspects about what happened on Elm Street, of course, like the Nightmare on Elm Street that occurred after a movie based on JFK. What people don't understand is one simple thing. There's a splice in the footage when the motorcade is going down Elm Street. And who is recording all this? This is undisputed. It just so happens who JFK, who claims to be against, it was a third degree Freemason in Abraham Zapruder. So you have JFK, you see him clearly doing Masonic handshakes with other politicians. One important key thing before I go further, we have to understand one thing. The first time JFK went off script, they would have yanked him. But getting back to, I'm really jumping around here, but it really coincides with Trump and JFK, where JFK gave a speech how he says he's supposed against secret societies and oaths. All this. This is a clever deception. It's just like before Trump was so-called elected, where Newt Gingrich was on Fox News saying, "Oh, the reason Trump's he's an outsider and people don't like him. This. He never took the oaths. Basically, he was not part of the rights. He was not a Freemason, which is a bunch of baloney."
So why did they kill JFK? I'm just curious. Sorry to interrupt, but why, in your opinion, why did they take out JFK then if he was part of the system?
Well, Robbie, this is really gonna hit you.
Sure.
I'm
open. I'm a flat earther. I'm open to anything. Trust me.
Exactly.
Well, that's the thing is, that JFK so-called assassination, this is going to be a very tough pill to swallow, was part of the world stage. Again, there's a splice in the footage with JFK before the motorcade goes down Elm Street. The footage in the background, look at the footage closely where JFK supposedly gets assassinated. It's layered footage.
Sure. My question is, so you're saying basically he never really died. It was all fake.
This was his exit from the world stage. It was basically a made-for-TV production, creating a hero. We have to understand the foundation of Freemasonry with Albert Pike. He states, "When the people need a hero, we shall supply him." JFK, again, he would not be in that position. He would have never made that pinnacle, the supposed the most powerful man in the public eye, anyways. And then the
same thing with his brother. They just kind of staged that.
I'll get into that too with Robert Kennedy.
Cool.
We have to but let me conclude with JFK.
Sure.
If you look at the footage, the people in the background when this is all going on, with JFK supposedly being assassinated, and you see supposedly his head explode. Unfortunately, this is a big graphic. I seen people shot in the head with police cams, where people are actually being shot at point blank range. And their heads don't explode. This is nonsense with the head exploding. This was basically, again, just a production. But an important aspect to understand this is, again, it's filmed by a third degree Freemason. Lee Oswald is 33 in numerology. Dallas, Texas is 33. It happened on November 22nd. So the 11th month of the year, the 22nd day is 33. So again, Dallas, Texas being 33. Now, again, getting back to the layered footage behind the whole supposed JFK assassination. Look at the people. You have a random guy jumping at a point where it doesn't make sense. You have people in the background looking at the wrong direction when JFK is supposedly right in front of them. You have a mother. You have a husband and wife with supposedly a child just staying there. After it's all going down in the background, they're staying there like nothing just went down. So there's definitely manipulation with that footage.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the splice in the story. And this is a really, really big, huge pill to swallow for someone new to this. They're like, oh, it's going to be like flat Earth. Even harder
So
for some
RV,
people.
what do you make of the? There's a conspiracy theory that JFK is really Jimmy Carter.
Well, I covered. I'm glad you asked that, Pastor, and that's the one I'm going to get to. They are different people, but that gets into what I've covered in a video where they show. This is from a Newsweek, actual Newsweek article, where they show two side-by-side photos of Jimmy Carter. And one has a part on the left, one has a part on the right. And it's really, they're hinting with the title, it's called A Man of Parts, like playing different parts. But I want to be clear, JFK and Jimmy Carter are two separate individuals. Listen to them speak. They both have accents. They speak, it sounds very similar. If you listen to them, it's not identical, but they have very similar type of accents. They look similar. Here's the thing is, there's actually the photo side by side. I believe one of the men with his hair parted to one side, it's a mirror reflection photo of JFK at an older age next to Jimmy Carter. They're literally mocking us. Just like when they put the San Diego children at the Super Bowl singing, they put them right in front of our faces. The reuse of crisis actors. You know, it's beyond the human mind what they are doing, but they're mocking us in so many levels. It's like, this is the man the whole world believes is assassinated, but we're going to play a gag on everybody. We're actually going to show JFK alive to the whole world in this Newsweek article. Again, the title is A Man of Parts. Jimmy Carter was asked during this press conference with this, what is an older man, by the way, doing, changing the part of his hair? You have like someone like say Brad Pitt or you have Tom Cruise, never change their parts. Why is an older man so interested in changing the parts in his hair? It makes absolutely no sense. So he was asked during this press conference, why did you change your hair part? He goes, you know what? I don't have an answer for you. That's a question you asked. I'm not going to give you an answer. And they go on later on. It's about symbolism. Again, the change of parts, playing a part, a man apart. So literally, the world is a stage. Real things happen every day. Horrible things happen every day. But when it comes to things that happen, and this is hard, like I said, a hard pill to swallow for many, because people want a hero. They're desperate for a hero in this world, but you're not going to be this is the grand illusion. They want to create a hero, so you don't turn to someone, of course, of great importance, God, Jesus Christ. They want to create heroes for the general public when there are none. They're just playing roles on the world stage. So let's get to Robert Kennedy and his supposed assassination by Sirhan. Sirhan, very interesting name. It just so happens Sirhan in numerology is 33. So you have two 33s with Sirhan with Robert Kennedy. If anybody took the time to watch a supposed assassination, like for example, they have a documentary, and what you'll hear is this supposed gunshot, and you could tell is dubbed in, and the audience, the background is dubbed in during this presentation. Basically, both Kennedy assassinations were hoaxes. They're creating these murders. They're creating so-called heroes, and of course, the connection with Kennedy with NASA. They named, of course, Cape Canaveral is Kennedy Space Center. And the runway is number 33 at one end, and the other, it's only one runway. It's 33 in one end and 15 on the other. Why is that? 15 in the Germanic numeric wheel is a cross. The number 15 represents the cross. So you have 33 and the cross with the symbolism. But again, getting to, there's nothing new under the sun, like the Bible states. So people believe, for example, Obama, Donald Trump, they're just players in the world stage. But for some reason, back in the 60s, they believe there were free elections and they actually allow people that believe they're living on a spinning ball to actually have a vote and say. No, these people are propped up puppets. All these people, every single president, that we see presented. And here's something interesting for anybody that knows the connection with Abraham Lincoln and Kennedy, all the so-called coincidences, where you have it was, I believe, I might have this wrong, I don't have it in front of me, but there was dates connected. Like, for example, in 1860, where you had Abraham Lincoln supposedly elected. Then you have in 1960 with Kennedy. Kennedy was shot in a Lincoln made by Ford, where Abraham Lincoln was shot in Ford Theater. They're both succeeded by the vice president named Johnson. All these connections. They're both assassinated with their supposed wives present. Both, John Wilkes Booth has three names, just like Lee Harvey Oswald. So basically, why does history repeat itself? Is those that are writing history love to repeat it. Just like, not to jump around too much, just like the Port Arthur massacre supposedly in Australia, there's supposedly a Port Arthur massacre in China. So you had two dual massacres. They're repeating history, and this is advanced truth for people that are hearing me for the first time speak about these things. It's gonna be too advanced for people. It's just like me with you, Robbie and Pastor Nick, talking to someone new about flat Earth. They're gonna be like, they're not gonna believe it at first. Like, what is this guy talking about? What are these people talking about? It's the same thing with Kennedy. It's like, new truth is like a meal. It takes time to absorb and digest.
Sure.
So yeah, RV, with obviously you understand the whole idea of censorship, and I'm sure you've been following. Just a few months ago, you've got Facebook and YouTube, and they're talking about they're going to crack down on certain individuals. 9/11, theorists and flat Earth, and moon landing deniers, and all of that. Where do you see this going? Do you think it's going to be a matter of a few months or longer than that before, things are shut down even further?
Yeah, Pastor Nate, that's an excellent question. And the so-called evolution, I hate to use that word evolution of YouTube, and how it's gradually, turned into the more policing. And that's how they do everything in this world when it comes to passing laws or for example, new policy with YouTube. They always do it gradually. They love to strip away our rights slowly, because it's like taking, for example, Robbie or Pastor Cole, if you guys have a piggy bank and someone's stealing out of your piggy bank, if they only take a few quarters here and there while you're away, you're not going to notice it as much. When someone takes the whole piggy bank, you're going to notice it. So they like to do things slowly, gradually, so people are accustomed to it. That's exactly like, for example, like with 9/11 and TSA, this was part of people becoming more and more slaves. Like, just to say, well, I'll get back to YouTube. I'm definitely into that, but it's like everyday life. Like, if you live in an HOA, you're already a slave to the system. Now, when you come home to your HOA, they're watching everything you do. If you have weeds growing on your property, if you have the wrong type of trees you're planting in front of your yard, if you're building your fence a foot higher than it's supposed to. All these things, they're basically creating slaves, the slave system. So getting back to YouTube, this gradual taking away of what we can lay out, and what they're censoring, is definitely a gradual process. And what I see in the future is they're gonna work around it, where basically they're not going to allow it, because they say it's creating a more so-called chaos, and it's basically terrorism, online terrorism. And there's a need to remove it because it's too extreme. And that's in the direction they're already at right now, but they're even going to clamp down even further, where they're not going to give you a warning. They'll literally just shut down your whole channel. Yeah. If you have 100,000 subs and they see something they don't like, they're not going to give you a 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out. They're going to literally just fold your channel with one strike, that type of thing, because it's going against their community guidelines, and it's their platform, and that type of thing, So I definitely see.
And you've seen, on YouTube where they started to put these little ads, underneath
info
to
boxes.
say, info boxes. Well, now I've seen that on Facebook. Somebody posted something about a news article or whatever, that a quote that some person supposedly said, and there's a little box in there that says fact check, and it's PolitiFact. And it's,
Yes.
yeah, and it says, oh, people say this happened, but this man, there's no evidence that this man ever said that quote.
They do that in moon landing videos all the time now. You can go to anywhere on YouTube and you'll see those info boxes under moon landing videos. But they did, I did read an article where YouTube said they will start putting them under flat Earth videos very soon. They will start appearing.
And one thing, Pastor Nate, you mentioned chemtrails, and this is one thing I've always been about. I don't go with consensus, of course, with society. And I don't go with consensus when it comes to so-called conspiracy theories. I don't jump aboard everything just because everybody's grouped together.
Yeah.
I've always looked at people like some so-called hero that used to be part of the FBI, Ted Gunderson. This guy was part of the he was in charge of the bureau in Dallas, Texas, with JFK. He never spoke the truth about JFK and that hoax. He was part of the LA branch, the Memphis branch. So this guy's going around talking about them being death dumps and all this talk and geoengineering and how it's poisoning. I believe this is what I look at it. I believe it's more or less it's for climate. They're changing weather manipulation. For example, Katrina, something like that. So this might upset a lot of people out there. Now I told this to David Weiss. I say it doesn't mean in certain areas they're not dumping chemicals on certain cities and certain environments, because I made a video about this a while ago. You see chemtrails over the White House. You see chemtrails over Obama during a speech with all these people. So definitely they could change the components for each individual airplane, what they're spraying. They could change the components. So, for example, what they're spraying in Nebraska could be different what they're spraying over Washington, D.C. So it's not so simple. And I do believe, I live in the coast of California, and I see them all the time. And I definitely believe it has to do with weather modification. Because when you have someone like Prince go on BET and talk about, I saw chemtrails when I was a kid, and I saw them after they were sprayed, the kids were fighting in the streets. What a ridiculous thing to say, to believe. That means, why weren't people fighting at the Obama? Why were there a bunch of fistfights at the Obama gathering when he was doing a speech? It's ridiculous to make a claim like that. So we have to be really wise where whatever they're pushing, whatever they're saying, and they're celebrities, we have to be very, very cautious and careful. So again, it's complex, where I'm not saying it's 100% weather control, but I do believe it's weather manipulation and in cases where it can be spraying and harming people. But it's not just a concrete type of thing. But I know how they operate. Whatever they're pushing, do not buy. Do not buy when you have former so-called breaking away agents like Ted Gunderson, calling them death dumps, and look at all these dead fish washing up, and that's because of chemtrails. And this, I'm very, very cautious, and I know it's very complex where they're going to push so-called heroes that were involved with the government. No, they say they used to work for the government. They still are in some capacity.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, I have a question for you. What would you say is the most controversial position that you take in the truther community that you get pushback from, not flat Earth, something else? Like what's your position where you've got the most opposition towards? And I'm talking about truthers, right?
Yes, I understand.
Like, they're coming at you kind of like, like you mentioned JFK or whatever. I'm sure you got a bit of pushback there. But what I'm saying is, overall, what's the biggest thing other than flat Earth that you've got a ton? No, sorry, RV, I just can't buy it. I got to look into it more or whatever.
There's about four or five. One is Hitler was a hero. These people don't understand the concept of the world being a stage. Hitler would not have been, again, propped up by the Vatican. Okay. Basically, So
for the record, Hitler is bad.
Well, no. Correct. Yeah. Well, Hitler was part of the world stage.
Correct.
Make no mistake about it, with all the Masonic hand signs, just like Trump does today. So you have Hitler, you have human cloning.
Okay.
Of course, cloning from birth, but to believe you can make Dr. Dre or Eminem, you could press them in a factory and make a duplicate. No, they're just lookalikes. So I get a lot of flack about that.
Okay.
UFOs. Of course, a lot of truthers that believe in aliens, UFOs. I said, no, they're demons that have always been here. They're demons in disguise that have always been here.
Good point.
And also Trump being a so-called hero.
Okay.
People that are believing, they're looking for a hero where there aren't any. All we have is Jesus Christ. In this world, like it says in Corinthians 4:4, 2 Corinthians 4:4, where literally Satan is the god of this world. God has ultimate authority. God is allowing this, but I believe, this is my stance, God is allowing this. This world is a proving ground. Few find the narrow gate. And if you can, you need really good discernment to see through all this. Again, Robbie, from the very start, you stated, I've been at this for a very long time. So
I know
my journey to where I'm at now. So you'll have someone that's new to truth, that's in it for a year or two or three.
Sure.
And they're not going to get a lot what I'm saying in the beginning. It's too extreme in their eyes, specifically with JFK, because the programming is so strong that JFK was a hero.
My point is, you've been around for 10 years and you've got like nothing but respect here in 2019. So what I'm saying to people is, look at kind of your body of work and recognize that, you should look into some things that, RV is saying, even if it rubs you the wrong way, because like I said, after 10 years and having the amount of respect you have across the board, that should say something, not just about your character and your personhood, but also about your research.
Yeah, and I appreciate that very much, Robbie. And Pastor, one thing I want to mention about JFK too, very poignant, very important. I talk about how they do things by dates and numbers, and I want to get into the Pentagon and the Twin Towers.
Sure.
But one thing very important is by the numbers. JFK was in office for exactly 1,000 days. Okay, this is by the numbers, and again, all the connections with Abe Lincoln and everything. These are scripted to happen. Well, just like 9/11. Here's something very interesting. The Twin Towers construction, the North Tower construction, started in 1968. Okay, this is 33 years, of course, to 2001. That's a 33-year difference. Now people say, oh, 9/11, when they use 9/11, it just means emergency. Nope, it just so happens the very first nationwide call, the very first year that the 9/11 calling system went nationwide was the same year the tower construction started in 1968 in Haley'sville, Alabama, on the third parallel, and also Haley'sville numerology is 33. So they have it down to a science. Here's something interesting too: the numbers when it comes to, for example, the Pentagon, as we know, September 11th, 9/11. When it comes down to it, the groundbreaking for the Pentagon was September 11th, 1941, 60 years prior to the Pentagon being attacked. Now, you take 10 years, you go back 10 years with the 9/11 attack. Of course, as we know, George Bush's infamous speech of the New World Order, September 11th, 1991, 10 years. So from 1941 to 1991 to 2001, you see how they work off dates. Now you have events such as so-called events such as Timothy McVeigh with the Oklahoma City bombing, supposed bombing. That was a government building. Perfect way to orchestrate an event on the world stage. Now, you had Timothy McVeigh. Guess what? He was supposedly executed at the age of 33, just like Muhammad Atta, who was supposedly 33 when he crashed into the tower. So now here's something interesting about McVeigh. He was supposedly executed again at the age of 33 on June 11th. June 11th is 6/11, 66 and 33 by the numbers. Now people say you're saying that the Oklahoma City bombing was a hoax? No, they blew up a building just like they blew up the buildings on 9/11, but it was a controlled situation.
Correct.
Look at the supposed victims of Oklahoma. These are crisis actors. These are people taking part of a psychological operation. That gets back to 9/11, the important aspect. Now, this might sound a little bit off, a little bit far-fetched, but look at the connection with 9/11 and the Twin Towers with Apollo 11. Apollo or Apollyon in Revelation 9/11, the only verse where the Antichrist is named as Apollyon or Abaddon, which Apollyon is Apollo. So basically, what it comes down to it, Anton LaVey, of course, the founder of the Satanic Church, has stated during a ritual that the number 9 is Satan's number. Where they were, during their satanic rituals, they ring a bell 9 times counterclockwise. Everything against a Christ. Instead of, it's like the concept of Michael Jackson's backslide. It's a concept of going against the whole name backsliding. It's going against Christ. Just like when people, again, former Christians or non Christians, they call it backsliding. So these are concepts that are everyday life that people don't understand. They're not pulled out of thin air. So the 9/11, again with Apollo 11, Apollo is the Antichrist, the number 9 in Satanism. So literally Apollo 11, the so-called mission to the moon, was 9/11 as well. Literally. Wow. So the connection with the Apollo 11 mission and 9/11, all these concepts, all revolving around this satanic government. Of course, as we know, above the White House, the upside down pentagram, the subcontractors for NASA, Lockheed Martin, they use the vector chevron symbolism, the two intertwining, like broken stars. And Manly P. Hall talks about in basically in witchcraft, how a broken pentagram is used like by black magicians for witchcraft to have demons serve their needs and to summon demons for during ritual.
So real quick, because we're ending the show here soon, but I wanted to ask real quick, who do you think is at the top of the pyramid? I mean, other than the spiritual nature of this world, who's kind of the top? Is it the Illuminati? Is it the Freemasons? Is it the Vatican? Because you know how it's all like a network, it's like a web, and they got all these different compartments. But I always like to ask truthers, who do you think is at the very top of this pyramid?
It's definitely Satan himself, and these people. Yes,
correct. But other than that, who do you think is his?
It's the bloodline themselves. It's the literal bloodline. So the names Freemasonry, Freemasons, or Zionists, or any of these names, they're just titles. They're all working together. It's like different departments in the government. They have different titles, but they're all together. They have a goal. They're all working together as one for the goal. One, they're going to make clear everything's in duality in this world. When they talk about the New World Order, it's actually the Old World Order. All these governments are working together as one to deceive the world. All these so-called space programs throughout the world, they're all working together. They all use the chevron vector symbology. So we know the world's a stage. And there is a New World Order already present, but it's going to be in the public eye at a later date. We already know there's a North America. They're going to have the North American Union. They already have one currency with the euro in Europe. It's a matter of time, and they're always on their time slot, their timetable when they want to do it. But it's going to happen, and it's very gradual. They're very patient. They never do things overnight. Everything is slow. Yeah. Like with all these so-called shootings, these they say, well, it hasn't happened yet. They're very, very, very patient.
Is one of their grand missions preparing the world for the Antichrist? What's your eschatology? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, and they definitely are setting up the Antichrist. And this is very important. It says in the Bible itself, it will be a false miracle. And basically, atheists and believers will be deceived. So there will no longer be atheists. These atheists will turn to believers, but believers in the Antichrist. So the atheism will be eradicated. And all these atheists will, I was wrong. There is this Christ, but he is the Antichrist, and the world will be deceived. The world will, like the Bible says, the world will follow the Antichrist, and based on false miracles. And that false miracle is surviving the mortal wound, and the Antichrist will be blinded in one eye. That's why the celebrities they're covering the right eye, because it states in the Bible where the Antichrist will be blinded. His right eye will be utterly darkened. And this is the Antichrist. So when they put their hand over the right eye, like Left Eye Lopez covering her right eye, she sees to her left. This is the worship of the Antichrist in plain sight. And people understand symbolism. They're going to get a better grasp of what's going on. Read the signs. I saw the signs.
I think there's a picture of even Buzz Aldrin doing that. There's that picture of Buzz Aldrin even doing that.
Yes, the 666 over the eye, and this is paying homage to the Antichrist himself. And there's so much more we can go on to. I know we're closing up, or we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah, we got about 4 minutes. We got about 4 or 5 minutes.
Make sure you share RV with the folks listening. What platforms are you currently on? Where they can see your stuff and all that good stuff.
Yeah, yes, Pastor Nate. I'll definitely, as many people know, I'm on YouTube. I'm also on 153 News. Unfortunately, I've been shut down countless amount of times on YouTube. It's just something I have to deal with. I had
If you never had any of your channels shut down, how many subscribers do you think you'd be at, like approximately?
I would say 1 million, because what happens is this, over 1 million, because what happens is this: when you're at the 20 or 30 sub mark, anybody knows this that has larger channels.
Yeah.
Once you reach the 83, then you literally skyrocket. Your name gets out there, your channel gets out there, and then you basically, it's like getting the ball rolling. It's slow at first, and it just snowballs. And when you get to like where I was, the highest, I think it was 85,000 subs. You check your sub count. It's like you can get 1,500 subs in a day, and you're at a snail's pace in the beginning, but it really goes. So to make a long story short, I had 2 channels going at the same time. One had approximately 83 or 85,000 subs. My backup had about 72,000. I basically made a prediction back in a couple of years ago with the so-called London attacks on 322. A day prior, I said, watch out that something might go down tomorrow. And what happened was the PSYOP in London, because when it comes to Skull and Bones Freemasonry, 322. And what happened was I covered that extensively, and basically I was covered by the Daily Mail. They reported me to YouTube. Shortly thereafter, I was shut down.
Yeah. So RussianVids, just the 2 words. People could just type that in on YouTube, find you, subscribe, check it out. He does incredible work on so many different topics. And I mean, at some points, I remember, back in 2015, you were putting out like 2 and 3 videos a day. Like you were just a machine. And I know you've gone through different periods, but I can't imagine the amount of research, just the amount of stuff that you cover, the wealth of knowledge that you have on so many different subjects. So it's wise for people to look into RussianVids in his channel, but also, in his extensive research, not just with Flat Earth, but every single truth or topic I think you could imagine. I think you've covered at one point or another. So it's an amazing thing to see you last pretty much a decade. You're still going. I mean, you could be deleted tomorrow. I used to always look at you and you'd be like, no big deal. You just start up a new one. I mean, you wouldn't be crushed. You would just be like, whatever, I'll start at 0. And then I'd look in a few days and it would already be at 10,000 subs. I was like, wow. Right. I've never seen someone grow so fast as someone starting, brand new YouTube channel over and over and over, and all of a sudden you'll amass 10,000 subscribers in like a few months. It's just, that takes a long time for someone to do normally. But like I said, you have such respect and just credibility in not just the Flat Earth community, but I think in a lot of truther communities. So it's always amazing to see your work. Okay, real quick though, what's your plans? Is there any other areas you're looking into? What videos can we expect from RussianVids in the rest of 2019?
Well, I want to say one thing. Thanks so much, Robbie and Pastor Nate, for having me on. And as far as the future is concerned, it's again extremely difficult to put out videos on specifically when it comes to so-called shootings that happen, because when you do that, you're going to be yanked almost immediately. So I've been really focusing on Flat Earth, and we know about the censorship when it comes to Flat Earth as well. So I'm really people say, well, you used to make all these videos and do this and that. Well, times change. It's changed to the point where my hands are tied. People say, why don't you make a video on this? Well, if I do, you want my channel to be shut down. That's what I tell people. Literally, my channel will be shut down. But one thing I want to tell people is so important moving forward is I want to leave on this note how important this, to understand the matrix. Again, getting back to signs and symbols. And I see this even with, for example, preachers and pastors. They're doing sermons, and I see them, for example, using something as simple as an Apple computer, and I don't know if they understand or not. There's literally, of course, a bite of the apple, and this is literally this is a symbol, of course, from represents the Garden of Eden, which Apple computer, the first Apple computer sold back in the late 70s for $666.66, and it's the concept of rams and bytes for computer hardware. Take a bite out of an apple and computer RAMs. This is all occultic. And for example, someone like Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, these people are Masons, and you see Steve Wozniak shaking George Bush's hand. He's giving up massage.
Unfortunately, we gotta go. We're ending the show. Thank you so much again for being part of Celebrate Truth Radio. It's been long overdue. It's great to have you on, and we're gonna definitely have you on in the future, and possibly on some panel shows that we have planned here the rest of 2019. So, from me and Pastor Nate and RussianVids, take care, everyone. Good night.
God bless.
Thank you. God bless.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Don't miss Celebrate Truth with Robbie Davidson and Pastor Nate every Saturday, 7 to 9 Pacific, 10 to midnight Eastern on Revolution Radio. They talk the Bible and how it exposes a lot of lies in the world with special guests, roundtable discussions, and call-ins from you, the listeners. This is not your typical Christian radio show. Celebrate Truth with Robbie Davidson and Pastor Nate every Saturday from 7 till 9 p.m. Pacific, 10 midnight Eastern on Revolution Radio.